Hey folks, welcome to 2019. As has been the case for the last couple of years, before we get into the swing of throwing episodes out, I did want to just sit down and do a bit of a debrief on 2018 for the channel and talk about what plans I have for the year that lies ahead. 2018's been quite a complicated year for the channel and for me. I had a few it's been a hard year in some ways for me personally. Few situational changes that have impacted things, and the challenges that the channel went through this year didn't quite help. But there were a number of successes which I'm really proud of. Really, I think the first one of those is getting to look at some exclusives. Getting a pretty much close to final build to cover of Aviator Arcade 2 was great. It's ended up being a fairly well-performing video. And also, I think being one of the only people who got to do a piece on Mono. I know Mono was controversial, but I still thought it was worth covering and discussing anyway. I also got to cover some games that were pretty darn important to me personally. And at least one of those seems to have gone off rather well, and rather recently by, if you follow the channel, you know what I'm talking about. And in terms of breakdown, I had a quarter out of the 50 that I scheduled for the year. I did about a quarter was scripted pieces where I wrote a script, filmed that, and I had almost 40% of stuff covering not just the 64. I've always felt I've struggled a lot with the whole idea that the channel's transcended my beloved bread bin. I've been trying to sort of push that it's a multi-format channel for a while, and there are challenges involved with it. Let's just leave it at that. But it is a year that for me has been for a bunch of failures. Namely, the channel didn't quite perform to what I expected. I had a really good 2017. I had a bunch of videos that went down incredibly well. And I feel like I crossed a couple of personal goals that year, like cracking 100,000 channel views, cracking 1,000 subscribers, and things like that. And the growth felt pretty good. So coming into 2018, I thought, unless I did something drastically wrong, it was going to maintain that momentum. Of course, there was a little thing called being booted out of the partner program in January. And pretty much once that took effect, which was late Feb, I could see the momentum melting away. And it got, I basically, at its lowest point of the year, which was June, July, I was pulling numbers closer to 2016's peaks. It felt like an entire year of progress had melted away. That being said, and I sort of noticed at that point where the initial momentum when I would publish an episode didn't really go to plan. I really felt a lot lower momentum in videos coming out, which meant that they really didn't perform well. And it wasn't just one or two, it was quite a lot. A lot of videos in that April to July window really didn't do well. And even outside of that. And it's got me really thinking that it's come down to three things. Scheduling. Historically, I've always done Friday night Australian time because it's end of the night, end of the week here. It means that it's early enough that I can sit down and actually respond to comments as they appear, at least for a few hours before I go to bed, because it's the one downside of me being on the other side of the world from the majority of the viewer base. I find myself that I need to... I find that despite a lot of work, I can never get the scheduling right. I can schedule stuff to go up while I'm asleep, but then that means even less of a chance of being able to respond until I'm awake in a few hours. Or do I go put in the middle of the day? It's a thing I'm struggling with. I think I've been struggling with, and whilst I thought I had something consistent, maybe it needs to change. Visibility. One of the things I looked at, I sort of took a look at. I know a lot of people say you don't look at stats, but I think it's worth looking at least at the end of the year, to sort of work out where things go for reevaluation. And one of the things I noticed is that the algorithm wasn't really sharing my newer stuff around. One of the things I post, I tend to calculate at the end of the year, is a list of the videos that were most watched and the videos that were most viewed. And one of the things I found in both lists, particularly the most viewed list, was that the videos that were most viewed, it was actually dominated by videos that came out before 2018. So a lot of my older content was being shown, probably because the algorithm had picked that up. But a lot of the stuff I published this year didn't. The other thing is, has the format stagnated? I've questioned that a while. Actually, quite a while ago, I filmed a vlog that I never published where I pondered that a bit. I thought about whether the format of what I do has to change. And it sort of ties in with it. Like, despite a growing sub base, like the average views in the first 24 hours haven't really grown much. So it makes me wonder a lot of things about that. I did also have a bunch of tech troubles this year. Some of those led to scrapped videos. Others have kind of messed up a lot of my pipeline. I usually edit. I have an external hard drive that I set up for editing. That had all my master project and templates, and that had a surprising failure at the end of the year, which actually meant I lost a whole bunch of whip episodes that I'd recorded footage for a long time ago. Some of those were a lot of arcade comparisons, so I'm going to have to refilm that footage. I also lost whips of, at the time it was the whip of Paradroid. I was lucky that I had the original footage backed up. And I was able to recover and be just a week behind on that. I also lost a bunch of the other stuff I did with Ant. So I put out Miguel Ace a few weeks ago. That was the only one I could successfully recover before the drive died. Unfortunately, there was an episode that followed on from that I really wanted to get out, but I couldn't recover it. So that's made me rethink a lot of my work infrastructure, because I have a master project. I edit the video. When that's done, I export it to a new project, compress that, and throw it up on S3. So I've got the master projects, and I have on my NAS the rendered video files. It's just that interim window messed up. So I'm going to improve that next. Something I'm going to work on this year. I have a lot of ideas about that. And like I said, I had some episodes I scrapped for tech filming. I wanted to do an episode on the Wi-Fi 64, which is a little user port Wi-Fi modem that was really nicely put together. I just ran into a lot of problems actually filming it, so scrap that. And one of the other pieces I lost in the drive failure was the process of setting up my reloaded Mark II, which took me a long time to do, but now that's running. It's what I've been using for the last few videos. I may do a piece on that. We'll see. Scheduling has usually not been a challenge, but this year, and it's kind of one of the things that's made me sit back and reevaluate, is that it was. Particularly, normally there's always been a good barrier between my day job and what I do here. Unfortunately, this year I had a bit of unexpected crunch into September, and in the first time in like 5 years, I missed putting an episode out because I was working on the Xevious look at the time, and of course that was a pretty big edit, and I didn't have anything reserved, and had to end up just skipping a week because I couldn't get the time because I was working late on an intense project. I was lucky that Zed and Action Fighter were very quick ones to release in that gap. I haven't had the backlog I've wanted. I feel like I've been on the back foot for a lot of 2018, and probably how it cascaded to that. And the last thing that sort of bummed me out a bit really has been the community factor. I know I'm not a very big name. I know I'm not the easiest to get along with, and I know I'm not the most popular. But one of the things about 2018 has really been the changing audience. One of the things I've loved about making videos is being able to talk and really talk to people about these games. You know, I strongly believe that just because a game is old, that it still has value as a game. I think you can learn a lot from design and mechanics and what makes these old games work. It's something I've always been upfront about. It's why there's always been that sort of analysis factor to some extent in the episodes I put out. But one of the things I found this year is just a lot of very shallow comments. I don't know. I don't know if it just makes you feel like the work isn't resonating as it once did. I miss the days when I could have a really good discussion, and I was still able to do that with a lot of loyal viewers this year, but the number of that really dropped. And I've had episodes where there've just been very few comments that haven't really led to discussion. Maybe that's something for me to deal with this year, as learning to be a better community manager. I don't know. It's also been a year with a lot more argumentative kind of comments, which has really taught me that I have a couple of pressure points. The first being the implication that the developer wasted their time making a game. I'm not a prolific developer, but I am one, and I think seeing people basically rubbish someone's work on the grounds that it was a waste of time is kind of demoralizing to an extent. I'm been the one who had to deal with that, not the developers themselves, of a couple of games in particular. But it's led to it's led to some arguments that have not been the best. The other one has been really just having my own experience of playing a game invalidated. I think, there's always a thing between opinions and experiences, and again, it's been a point of arguments through the year. It's been at least particularly one episode where it was a little unfair. Basically being told my experiences don't count, despite me playing the game and you seeing my reactions live. It's really, those things have kind of demoralized me a bit, and there were times throughout the year I wondered about if I'd just get to the end of the year and wind things up. I'm not going to be doing that, otherwise you wouldn't see the camera here right now. But I'm not going to lie, 2019 is actually going to have a bunch of change to the channel. One of the things, I took a step back and realized, what are my strengths as a presenter? And a lot of it is looking at those insights, being able to sit down, take a look at, the games as I'm playing them, what works, what doesn't, a lot of that kind of aspect, bit of history, bit of things like that. That's where I know my strengths lie. The more spontaneous nature of doing a live play is really there. I'm not that naturally funny kind of person, so it doesn't work there. So because of that, like I said, if you were to ask me what my favorite videos I put out this year, Paradroid, Xevious, Stop the Express, Intensity, stuff like that. I really enjoyed diving deep into those games. And so, again, that's sort of the focus where I think I want to make the channel more of. So the first point of that really is quite straightforward. The role plays episodes as you know them are going to end. I'm going to keep the name alive if I do streaming. I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I've never really been able to even just get a thing. But the thing is, as a format, it's not really giving me the freedom to cover a lot of the stuff I want to talk about, to get more in depth. It limits the kinds of games I can play. And I think that, for me personally, a lot of my interest in doing these videos is being able to explore those games. And if I were to just sit down and play the same old things again and again, yeah. I also think that there's a lot of expectation that it has sort of cadence for things like that I'm mainly doing 64 content, or that I'm mainly covering new games or things like that. And a lot of the shifts this year in this year are really around me widening that net a bit. So this kind of change will allow me to focus on my strengths more. The other thing that really what those two things mean is, and this is a big one, I'm not producing weekly videos this year. A lot of the problems, the stresses I felt in 2018 were around maintaining a weekly schedule while trying to do a lot of this stuff. A lot of things from a day job interfering, a lot of the other things. By backing away to a weekly schedule, basically I'm going to do 2 videos a month. That's what I'm committing to. 2 videos a month, one a smaller edit, one a bigger one. And hopefully that'll mean that I can get a decent amount of content out. I can keep my head a little screwed on and not feel as burnt out. I have felt it a bit this year. And it will allow me to explore stuff in a bit more depth, a little more interesting. I'm hoping to still be able to cover that mix of... Pardon me. It will still allow me to cover that mix of classic games that are interesting alongside new releases. And I'm hoping to try and be a bit more active for new releases on other platforms this year. I feel I haven't quite lived up to that. I know at least there's a couple of machines where there's some interesting stuff coming out. Really looking forward to Dungeon Hunt 2 on the Ataris. That looks really cool. I'll try and dig up a screen and pop in the corner or something. The other part of this is, as sort of mentioned, there's the weight that comes with what Rob Plays is, and I'm going to be rebranding a lot of the stuff. Essentially, the stuff that will be coming out this year will be a new series. I have a preliminary name. I just thought of it this morning whilst I was getting ready to film this, but I'm going to be going through to see if I can get all the stuff together, and you'll see that debut on the next video, which, like I said, I think the plan is to do the second and fourth weeks, like second and fourth Fridays. Now, I don't know if I'm going to stick with Friday. I'd like to hear from folk about that. I know some other channels have moved, and I don't know if I should move to earlier in the week, or I should move to the weekends, or I am feeling a bit that Friday night hasn't been pulling good numbers, so that's maybe a time change. And realistically, so the new thing will be, like I said, it's a celebration of, if you ask me what the channel's about, it's me looking at games on classic home computers primarily, but also there's also the intersection with modern games that do that. I really like covering like Hyper Sentinel earlier in the year, because of, what it takes from the old stuff, but also bringing new mechanics in. And I really like that idea that I'd like to cover a bit more of as well. Don't worry, I'm not going to be turning into covering modern AAA stuff or more games as service stuff like Fortnite. Don't worry. It's still gonna be mainly retro. Keep it retro is still a thing. But I want to take an approach that respects the medium, covers a lot more detail, and really lets me do the explorations that I want to do deeper into games. That's sort of the main reason why I do the channel, why I continue to do it, what interests me the most. The setting up the camera, filming me playing a game live, there's a point where it just doesn't really cease to challenge. Like as a creative pursuit of creatively editing, like, again, as I said, I've really, it's an exploration of where I found my strengths. And the shift this year is really allowing me to work on those strengths. I feel like I've hit a ceiling in terms of my abilities, and I think doing the live videos, I haven't grown as much this year as I'd like. So by being able to do more scripted stuff, by rebranding to sort of acknowledge that and that as the focus, it's going to let me explore stuff a bit more in a bit more detail, and hopefully produce better content for you all to watch, and maybe it'll be easy for folk to keep up with as a result. We'll see. So that's really the plan. I hope you're all on board. If you're not, you could have helped with keeping the older content go better. I'm really excited. As I'm sitting here now, the script and footage has been done for the first episode. If I'm right, it's going to be, let's check the calendar. I'm actually going to check the calendar now. Right now, if it's going to be Friday, it'll be Friday the 11th. So that's when the first one will go up. Friday night, probably. If not, it'll be around. Subscribe, hit the bell. I know I really have debates with that language, because quite frankly, I think we're all adults and you don't need to hear me say it at the end of videos, but it does help. If you want to keep in track, that's the best thing to do. Subscribe, hit the bell, even turn on the email notifications and get a digest. So I'm going to leave it there. Anyway, I hope you've all had a wonderful holiday, or you're still enjoying it. I've got a couple of days left as I film this before I go back to the day job for the year. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching.